Okay, I see some typing, so people are able to hear. If this is your first time in a Canvas conference, you have some controls at the top left side of your screen. So you have the ability to mute and unmute your microphone using the little microphone button. And you can also choose whether or not you want to enable your webcam with the little webcam button. So that's just whether or not you want others on the conference to be able to see you. So from our end, we're not going to be using the webcam today because we're showing you this the PowerPoint, but you do have the option to use webcam with the Canvas conference feature. We also are recording our conference today, so you will be able to access this at a later time if you need to. Great, I'm glad to see so many people are on and everyone can hear. So we'll go ahead and get started. This is Molly Blair from Student Services. I'm here with Alyssa Lipinski, and we'll be taking you through some information about PBS teaming and faculty commitment. So our Canvas conferences this year are really structured around the benchmarks of quality for PBS. So all of those key indicators for indicating PBS in your building will be going through in a sequence this year. So starting off talking about teaming and faculty commitment. So what we want to know and understand for today are those critical elements of school-wide PBS that relate to developing your team and getting buy-in from your faculty and other stakeholders. And what we hope everyone is going to be able to do is develop a team if you don't have one already. Schedule your meetings so you know when and where you'll be meeting and with whom, and then identify and implement some strategies for buy-in within your building. And we do have the chat box going, so at any time if you have questions or want to share anything, please feel free to use the chat. So on the benchmarks of quality for PBS, there are 3 items that look at teaming. So specifically, does the team have administrative support? Do you have regularly scheduled meetings, so at least monthly? And then is there a clear mission and purpose for your team? So does the team agree upon what you're doing together? And then the goals of your team would revolve around ensuring effective Tier 1 instruction and support for all students. So what is your Tier 1 for behavior in your building that all students are exposed to? Monitoring those interventions and support. So how do you know if they're working? What's the progress? What data are you looking at? And then using those problem-solving skills to integrate academic and behavioral instruction and supports. And then we're also training school staff, students, and families.
So these are really the primary goals of the school-based PBS leadership team. However, these goals will never be fully achieved if the PBS team is not functioning as effectively and efficiently as possible. So it's really important for each team to establish and maintain an effective teams. That's why we're focusing on that first. So strategies for building and maintaining an effective PBS team are going to be covered in the following slides.
So some of those essential components you want to think about when you're setting up your team would be multidisciplinary representation. So do you have that diversity on your team to have some teachers, maybe some support staff? Administration is really key. And also, what about students, community members, parents? How are they involved in the team? Again, that clear mission and vision for the team. Norms and responsibilities. So when you're meeting, do you know who is expected to facilitate, who is keeping track of time, who's taking notes, and then what are the responsibilities for each of those roles? Norms are very important. We'll go more in detail about developing norms for your team, but we find that it's very helpful to have those set up front and involve the team in developing them. That helps people to buy in, and it gives you something to refer back to down the line if things go off track or people are maybe doing things that aren't productive for your team process. You can refer back to the norms, and that's a nice neutral way to keep the team on track that anyone can do. And then, of course, that leadership support, both through interpersonal communication with leadership and team members, and then through that collaborative problem-solving process.
So the PBS team should really consist of a diverse group of people from across all areas of expertise, even grade levels, positions, and so forth. So one thing to really keep in mind is, of course, that the school administrator has a critical role in the PBS team. They're actually, almost the most essential component for success for the PBS team at your school. Some examples of how membership among your team has that diversity. Could be membership by your school administrator, of course, general and special ed teachers, again, across grade levels, behavioral expertise, people that have that knowledge to help in the problem-solving process, and also family, student, and community involvement. So some things that you might think about with your team, and when you think about your school team, is what are your PBS team members? Who are they? What does it look like at your school? Do you have the necessary and appropriate people around the table when you meet? And if not, what are the strategies that you're going to follow through with to make sure you secure those appropriate people?
And establishing a mission statement for your PBS team really helps to guide the development of your core behavioral curriculum. So what is that going to look like, Tier 1 for your school, as well as ensuring that you implement effective strategies. This helps secure buy-in as well, because you're really answering the question, why are we doing PBS? What is it that we want to happen for our students as a result of PBS in our building? So this is something that would be short and easy for everyone, including students, community members, and others to understand. So really it provides the direction and keeps the team on track when you're doing your action plan, because everything you do should kind of go back to supporting your team's mission.
Right, so again, some things to consider and think about. Does your team have a vision or mission statement? And if so, do those statements reflect what your PBS team is doing? Are all the members of your team aware of the vision statement? Or if you have a vision statement, does it need to be updated or modified in any way?
And thinking about roles and responsibilities for your team. So really making sure there's that understanding of what people will be doing at the meetings ahead of time, and that it's explicit. So we're not assuming people know what their role is on the team when we haven't talked about it. So some examples, the administrator would be actively supporting the team's effort, allocating those resources, so making sure there's a protected time and space for the team to meet, and that it's part of the master calendar for the school, just like other team meetings. And then there's also your team leader at the school site, so who is responsible for that pre-meeting preparation and material, so things like your agendas, helping set the purpose for the meeting and guide it along. And then your recorder would help to take notes and electronically distribute so that everyone is on track with what happened at the meeting. So these are some examples of roles and responsibilities that you might have as part of your team. So again, that timekeeper helps give reminders about the agenda items for how much time is allocated, making sure you accomplish what you want to in the time that you have. Maybe someone to to coordinate communication. So facilitating within the group and then communicating out to other groups too. So if you need to give information to another committee in your building, to the PTA, to someone at another school, how would you do that? Someone with data expertise who can really access and help analyze behavior data. Maybe somebody who knows a lot about Pasco Star. If you have a behavior specialist or someone else in your building who has expertise in behavior principles and can really assist with data analysis. Family liaison, so someone getting that parent perspective and helping communicate and get input from parents. And then also student liaison, so that is your student representation. How are you getting input and perspective from students and getting that communication from their peers?
So it'll be really important to really think about your team and who fulfills these roles on your team. And then again, which positions are not filled and how you're going to go about making that happen. Okay, so the next slide talks about team norms. And really the goal of developing team norms is to promote oneness among the members, to establish trust and secure a sense of cohesion. So teams who have collaboratively developed group norms function more effectively and efficiently, and that's what we want. So team norms should really be included on the meeting agenda and be reviewed at the beginning of each meeting as well. Again, something to kind of think about, as we talk is how does this relate to what your PBS team looks like at your school? So with that, start thinking about, have you shared your PBS team norms across your school? Not just with, the PBS team itself, but with your whole faculty and staff. And then again, if you've really engaged in ongoing meetings so far, which norms have contributed to your successful teaming that's going on?
And then a little more about leadership support. This has a couple different areas. So interpersonal communication, those are things like active listening and showing empathy, using your questioning and clarifying skills, and then paraphrasing, summarizing, and synthesizing the information. So you might have different viewpoints represented, so being able to kind of bring those together and summarize them for the team. Then problem-solving skills, and we'll go a little more into the problem-solving cycle in a minute, but we wanted to talk a little bit about human emphasis versus task emphasis in teams. So often there is a need to get some tasks done, to get some work done, but we also have to attend to the human side and how people are feeling about the meeting and making sure everyone is heard and that their input is valued. So both of those pieces are necessary. We can't be all human emphasis and not get the task done, but we also don't want to focus on the task to the extent of alienating team members. So we want to make sure we attend to both of those things. So just a little review on some of the interpersonal communication, active listening, really consciously focusing on someone else's words or thoughts and understanding what they mean, and then also understanding their complete message or idea that they're sending and where they're coming from. So that includes being very carefully attentive to the person who's speaking and tuning out those distractions. So thinking about what are your norms about distractions during meetings and how are people using things like technology tools. So maybe having some norms around that. And then keeping the focus on the content that's being shared and not any other issue or concern that might be outside of the team's mission.
Okay. And then just to keep in mind, too, the barriers that often occur with active listening. We've all been a part of meetings where maybe prejudging suggestions or comments made by others, monopolizing of the conversation sometimes takes place. Again, that engagement in other activities. Molly was just talking about tuning out distractions like cell phones, email, etc., which can all be talked about in your norms and kind of brought back to that as well.
So some other pieces with interpersonal communication, that empathy, so just conveying to the other person that you understand and have actively listened to their concerns. And that helps to increase helping behaviors among other team members if they feel that empathy from you, and then also supports the active listening process. Questioning, so thinking about open-ended questions and using that strategically. So if you're wanting to gather information and enhance the discussion and participation, using some open-ended question. Versus closed-ended, those yes-no questions, which would just help confirm information, really doesn't generate more discussion, but helps you kind of get a pulse of where the team is at with an issue. And then, of course, clarifying, that helps ensure that people understand the meaning, that that's been fully captured, and then helps to enhance your understanding of ideas, suggestions, problems, whatever is being discussed.
Other techniques that are helpful with, when facilitating and discussions of meetings are paraphrasing. So, restatement of thought or somebody's thoughts or ideas, often to clarify, but also to let them know that you're hearing what they're saying. Adherence to original meaning maintained. So you're still hearing what they're saying, you're understanding what's being said, and you're paraphrasing it for the group also. We also like to summarize. Obviously, we have a lot of people involved in the group, and it's important to make sure that we're all on the same page. So you want to review the content and ideas that were generated to make sure that we've heard everything that was discussed, and really touching on the most important pieces of the discussion and key points. And then, of course, synthesizing all the information. So combining the content and data, bringing information, thoughts, and ideas together is really important, especially at the end of the meeting. And it really helps in the facilitation when you're talking about action steps and next steps in the development of your interventions.
And this is just a chart with some examples of interpersonal communication skills in practice. So this might be helpful to share with team members across teams in your building to help build that, that type of productive communication that you want to see. So collaborative problem solving, our goal is to decrease the problem situation or barriers so we can get to our goal, and then of course increase our progress toward whatever it is we want to achieve. So just a little overview that helps provide a structure that allows us to identify problems, develop and implement those plans, and then evaluate to see if it's working. And this is really an evidence-based way of looking at our data and putting plans in place that make sense with our data and then seeing if what we're doing is effective. So this is very strongly related to better outcomes for students. So interventions developed through this method have been found to be more effective than those developed through other methods. So it's more effective if you use problem solving than if you just kind of come up with things that might make sense or seem on the surface like they have value. And this can be applied at any level. So many teams are used to problem solving individual students through processes you already have in place in your building, but then also looking at those groups, maybe classrooms, grade levels, as well as the whole school. This is a review of a 4-step problem-solving process. So we're looking at problem identification, so what is the problem? Problem analysis, why is it happening? That intervention, design, and implementation, what will we do about it? And then very important, that evaluation, are the interventions working as we expected them to?
So step 1 of the problem identification, it's really critical that this is the first step. Because oftentimes teams attempt to quickly determine the problem so they can just move straight to intervention implementation or intervention development. But we really need to take the time in the beginning to really identify what the actual problem is.
Okay. And then problem analysis, why is it occurring? This is really where we collect and review objective data related to the problem we've identified. So again, developing and answering guiding questions is really the key to analyzing that problem accurately. So this isn't just why we think it's happening, but based on our data and really carefully analyzing the situation, what are the causes that we identify?
And then moving forward with step 3, which is intervention design and implementation. So the team, in going through this 4-step problem-solving process, should keep in mind that intervention strategies should be linked to the hypothesis that was developed in step 2. Oftentimes, this bridge between step 2 and 3 is missed. And if interventions don't address the why the problems are occurring, they will likely produce the kind of behavioral outcomes that are not desired.
And then step 4, addresses the response to intervention. So really, is it working based on the data we've collected? Are our interventions doing what we intended them to do? So the team will really need to identify what data will be used to answer those guiding questions and review it for changes over time. So is the behavior increasing? Is it decreasing? Are you seeing no change at all? So that was just a quick overview of the problem-solving process. We find that it's helpful to set that up with teams up front and make sure everyone is on board and understands that's the process you'll be using. It helps to make the communication flow a little bit better, and it also helps adhere to those team norms. So then leadership support for effective teaming, and this is through your team leaders as well as your administration and other leadership structures in your building. That helps with interpersonal communication, understanding and implementing the problem-solving process. Again, sticking to that data-driven approach. Helping to create that atmosphere of trust and collaboration so people feel comfortable sharing ideas and working together towards a common goal. And then, of course, developing, clarifying that mission and goals of the team, communicating that out to others as well, and very importantly, acknowledging and celebrating those successes. Even small successes warrant acknowledgement and celebration.
So the next 3 points here also come from the benchmarks of quality when we look at faculty buy-in. So are faculty aware of behavior problems across the campus through regular data sharing? How does that happen? What does that look like? Our faculty are involved in establishing and reviewing the goals of the PBS team and what you're trying to achieve. And then that faculty feedback is obtained throughout the year as well.
So some next steps within the Canvas course. Once we're done with our conference, you'll be able to go back out into the assignments section, and there will be a follow-up activity called PBS Team and Faculty Buy-In that will ask you to respond to some specific questions about your team. So things like who is your facilitator for your team, when are you meeting, and then also what are some things you'll be doing to promote and increase that faculty buy-in. There's also another place to upload a document, so that could be a photo, could be a video, it could be another type of document like a team agenda or a schedule of meetings to really illustrate what you're doing to further that team building and faculty buy-in on your campus. Going back here for a minute just to the faculty buy-in, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an opportunity to chat in the chat box off to the side about some of the ideas that you have or some of the things you might want to implement this year to promote buy-in. So I know some examples while you're collecting your thoughts. I know I've heard from some schools doing a parent night and having parents and teachers come in to get more information about the PBS team.
I know some other schools are having the PBS team talk at one of their faculty meetings to explain what they are, what their purpose is, share out their mission and vision statement to make the rest of the faculty aware.
A good question. Asking about elementary students being involved in the team. Absolutely. And this would be probably maybe some of your student leaders, older students, kids who have shown that maturity, and being able to give that kind of feedback. Definitely, I'm thinking about how you would get student input, but absolutely, elementary kids can be involved in the PBS team.
Great question.
And for those of you that attended PBS training over the summer, there was a spreadsheet that we used that looked at the amount of time lost to office discipline referrals. That can be a helpful way of communicating with teachers, parents, and others about the need to reduce office discipline referrals and focus on positive behavior support strategies. And it's a great point Stacy made, help them see connections to what they're already doing. So there are a lot of things going on at the classroom level that really connect strongly with school-wide PBS. As well as other team structures in your building. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel with this problem-solving team. You may already have a group that is meeting to look at data and can carry out this role. A great suggestion to present at a SAC meeting to get community and parent stakeholders involved. A great use of technology. So we've got people using Google Docs to let teachers input their information on one document. So that helps, well, it obviously helps reduce the meeting time and also allows you to have less time spent on that paperwork type of task. Connecting to previously presented data, connecting it to other PD related to behavior, absolutely. And then having teachers take that leadership role in sharing and mentoring with others. Good question. Examples for tracking at Tier 2 and Tier 3. We do have some examples, and we can share those with you offline and also probably set up a time in one of our subsequent meetings to go over that as well. Thank you guys. Those are great thoughts and feedback there. Okay, so like we said, our next steps within the Canvas course, there's a follow-up assignment so you can share what you're doing as far as setting up your team and building buy-in. And there's also a place we really want to get some concrete examples like pictures or videos or agendas that people have used that we might be able to share on our future Canvas conferences. We've got some contact information and resources. Florida's Positive Behavior Support Project has a lot of the material we've gone over today, as well as a classroom consultation guide that can be really helpful if you're working with teachers on how to set up these structures for their classroom. And then, of course, we invite you to also attend our next Canvas conference. It's going to be October 10th at 1 p.m. And we will, again, record that as well for future access.
So please remember to tell the remaining members of your PBS team or any other staff members at your buildings that they can access and reference this conference as any other future conference on our campus site.
Absolutely. And a good question, can we invite all of our PBS Canvas course? Yes, anyone that you want to participate in the conferences is welcome to participate. The Canvas course is it's open, so that means anyone can go there and click that Join the Course button. So if you have a Pasco email address and a Canvas login, you can get in and be part of the course and access all the materials. Well, we want to really thank you guys for participating with us today. We really appreciate your active participation and all the great feedback that you gave as usual. We'll stay online for a couple more minutes in case people have individual questions. You can type in the chat box and talk with us that way. And we look forward to seeing all of you next time. Thank you so much. Have a great
Bye.
weekend.
Have a great weekend.